It was never really my intention to stay in the army so long. I thought I would join, be a plumber, get a trade and then leave. But then it never really happened that way. When I went to the careers office, I passed all the selection tests to be a plumber in the Royal Engineers, but then they wanted to wait 12 months until basic training started, and I just wanted to earn some money immediately. So I just said, put me down for whatever you need GCSEs for. Scored quite high on like the entrance test, the barb test, and then they said, right, you're going to be an ammunition technician. I was like, cool. I went to basic training, and being from that area in Cornwall, you don't really tend to leave. I'd only been abroad on a school trip to France before I joined the army, and then my longest sort of solo train ride was to basic training in Purbright from Cornwall. And then the first part of the course is learning all about the army's land service ammunition, so everything from bullets to guided missiles, guided weapons, and grenades and everything in between. I knew absolutely nothing. Being a 17-year-old girl, I really didn't. And I didn't know the difference between a grenade and a mortar bomb, for example. And the first course is 6 months long. So you learn everything from all that sort of technical details, like how much explosive is in a hand grenade or whatever, all the way through to how a guided missile works and the firing sequence and stuff. I guess the most exciting bit of the course for most people is the bit where you get to dispose of it by demolition. Because, when stuff goes shelf life expired or it gets damaged or it's no longer serviceable, then you dispose of it. And you do that by using a large plastic charge or a small plastic charge, depending on what you're getting rid of. And then you would essentially blow it up. Essentially, I went to Iraq in 2006, I want to say. I just turned 18. That was my first time on a plane. And you had to put your helmet and body armour on. They turn off all the lights. And you had to do like a tactical landing, I guess they called it. So they'd essentially fly and then they would dive down and then they would sort of peter off at the bottom. So I didn't know that was unusual. And then I got to Basra airport, which was in Iraq. And then I got on a helicopter to the next location, which was Shaiba Log Base. Just before I deployed, a helicopter had been shot down. So they were doing like evasive procedures. So the helicopter, instead of just taking off and flying, was doing all this sort of hedge hopping. So again, I'm in the back of a helicopter being thrown around, like somebody's there, civilian, working with the like NAFI staff, the canteen staff, and they were being sick in a bag. And it was, really full on. I arrived at Basra and they were like, where are you going? And I was like, I don't know, Iraq, I'm here, aren't I? And they were like, no, where are you going now? And I was like, I didn't know there was more than one place. Like, what do you mean? So I just worked in the ammo depot in Iraq the first time. A lot of it is just like sorting through the ammunition that they've been using, making sure that it's, not shelf life expired, for example, and that it's, we sort of say free of splits, cracks, dents and corrosion. They're the sort of, basic signs to look for. If it goes to somewhere abroad like Iraq or Afghanistan, then the heat and the cool will make the explosive degrade quicker. And then certain explosives, when they get old, start to break down or crystallise, become more sensitive. When I came back, I did a lot of ammunition surveillance stuff back in the UK, again, back to Kyneton. And then all the sort of 105mm shells, which are the artillery shells that are fired out of the field guns, they came back from Iraq. And one of my jobs for about a year was to hoover the sand out of the boxes, wipe the shells down, put the cartridge cases into a gauge to make sure that they would fit in the gun barrel, stencil a little T on it to say that it had been to Optelic, and then repackage it and send it off to whichever conflict it was going to, or back to storage or whatever. That was my job for about a year. During this point, I went away skiing and I broke my back. So I was going down a hill. I was sort of messing around a little bit. Somebody got into my way and I couldn't stop. So I thought I'd go and land on a nice pile of snow, but it was where the snowplow had been. So it was like compacted ice. It was like hitting a brick wall. And essentially my legs went up, my bum hit, and everything compressed. And one of my vertebrae shattered. And then one above had a hairline fracture. And essentially now I've got metal plates in there, which fuse 5 vertebrae together. That was wild. I was only 20 at the time. So it was like obviously really at the beginning of my army career. After I initially hit the slope or the ice wall, if you like, you know, when you're like winded and you think, oh, fuck, that's really hurt. But then you're like trying to catch your breath. And then this like wave of pain came and I was like, oh, I'm actually not going to catch my breath. Like I've hurt myself here. I do have like quite a vivid memory at that point of somebody sort of slapping me awake because I'd passed out. And I was like, you fucking joking me? Like, I'm in so much pain. Just let me be. So I was in France. I went to Grenoble hospital. But when they initially got me into hospital, I think they were sort of thinking I hadn't really hurt myself that badly. So they gave me a drip and I could read the drugs and it said paracetamol. And I was like, I don't want this. Give me something else. And they did a scan or they did an x-ray or whatever they did. And then the doctor didn't speak any English. So then he came in to tell me what was going on. And he said, you have your back. And I was like, what's he saying? He's like, back. And I was like, is he trying to tell me I've broken my back by going like that? So yeah, that was my spine, essentially, broken my back. Then I went to Grenoble for 2 weeks and they did the surgery, which took, 14, 15 hours to, fit all the metal plates, put it back together, fuse them together. And then that was me for, I think, around 4 months. At this point, I think somebody said to me, you'll never do EOD now. Explosive ordnance disposal. That's bomb disposal. You'll never do bomb disposal now. And I was like, oh, will I not? And I thought, for you to tell me that I can't do it. And I think that's where the big drive then came from, was in like, well, I will do it or I'm going to get out. At that point, I couldn't walk, learn how to walk again, all of that good stuff. It took about 4 months, I'd say, before I was, fairly comfortable, still on painkillers, but just to take the edge off rather than to function, I would say. So I deployed to the Falklands because they've got a really good rehab and gym facility out there. And again, like I was trying to make this recovery, but it was really public and in front of everyone because everyone knew about the injury. And I felt like I was just like being watched all the time to see, my progress. So I thought if I just get away, have a good 6 months to figure out whether I'm going to be able to do this or not, and then come back and figure it out. Similar sort of job as before in an ammunition depot, but this time I did lots of like monitoring of missile firings and like disposing the odd rogue missile or whatever, which was quite cool. But on the back of that tour, I did make quite a good recovery. I think I got to the stage where I could run 13 miles without stopping, pain-free. I could pass all my fitness tests again. I was in a good place.